Within the COMSOP, the exterior section, it states that we are to identify the type of siding placed on a commercial building. In this case, we have some form of stucco siding. Now, it's important to identify what type of stucco siding is present, whether it's hard coat stucco or EIFS stucco, exterior insulated finishing system. Really, the best way to tell what type of stucco is on the building is to knock on the building. If it's hard, if it's very cement feeling, then it's most likely hard coat stucco. If when you knock on it or press on it, it depresses, then it's largely going to be EIFS stucco. Once you've identified the type of stucco on the building, then you have to consider the type of building construction. That type of building construction is what's going to dictate what type of drainage might be present. In this type of building, I have a very large reveal. The reveal is the width of the building as it projects beyond a door or a window. This reveal, being 4 to 8 inches thick, is a great indication that construction of this building might be cinder block or concrete block construction. And having the cement stucco placed on top of it would be an indication we most likely don't have a drainage system. But because this is a commercial space, this is a 2-story office space with a great deal of surface wall area, it's going to be very important that we have control joints. The control joints are physical joints placed in the stucco wall that allow cracking to occur in a predetermined designated space. The current requirements for control joints are at about an interval of 144 square foot. And we can see those control joints best over my left shoulder. Beyond control joints, beyond the surface condition, beyond identifying moisture and the construction, I think we need to start looking for any physical defects that might be present. These could include surface cracking, failed control joints, loose sections, structural cracks, efflorescence from moisture, or even rusting that might be happening coming out of any of the surface materials that were holding the stucco on the building. Let's see if we can identify any of those issues as we walk around this building. When we think about the construction of the stucco and the use of the control joint, that control joint is a physical metal bar placed in the stucco that allows it to have that spot to crack. Well, if we don't have proper adhesion of that metal bar creating the control joint, that bar can come loose. As in this case, this control joint is actually popping. And as it's popping, it's sagging on the weight of the stucco. And that hard coat stucco, being cement, is as hard as concrete. And that weight is actually pulling it down and creating a perpendicular crack over to that inside corner stress mark. There's not going to be too much additional pressure placed on this section. Could be weight from the roof leak, if there's one, or just the pure weight of the concrete that might cause all of this to topple. So this would absolutely be something of an issue that I would want to photograph, note on my report, and make sure my client knows about it. Let's see if we can find any other issues with the stucco today. As we walk around the entire exterior of the building, we're going to not only look at the control joints and all those items that are going to occur that are around the building, but we got to understand the dynamics of cracking and crack maintenance and crack identification. So just because there's a crack, now the previous image that we showed with the deflection of the control joint and the stress crack coming off of that perpendicularly is from the weight. The crack that we have here on this inside corner, and again projecting across the top, is not that. This is just a normal stress crack that's happening in relationship to the shrinkage of the concrete and the angles that are approaching it here. So looking at the cracks, watching how they're displaced, are they wider or narrower? Are they moving upward or downward? Would be things you want to look for as you're identifying the stucco issues walking around the building. Continuing with cracks. It's one of the more complicated yet easy things to identify in a building because you can observe a crack. But the key is to observe what type of crack it is and whether it's a crack you should be concerned about. So when I look at a crack like the one that's above this particular opening here, it's where the lintel that holds the concrete up, and it's reflecting perfectly vertical. Now if I look at a crack and it's perfectly vertical and it's even in width, then that's typically a shrinkage crack or a thermally related crack, and a crack that's fairly benign to the building. But if I look at a crack and there's some form of movement, now that movement will be visible by the shape of a V. If the crack is wider at the top than it is at the bottom, then it's displacing this way. If it's wider at the bottom than it is at the top, then it's displacing in an upward motion. Those are cracks that when I identify a crack and it shows that V shape, then that's a crack that gives me a little bit more interest, and it's probably an interesting crack that's probably showing some form of movement. So we want to watch all the cracks as we walk around the building as well. Developing an exterior inspection strategy is really important for doing a good commercial inspection. And here we are doing the exterior siding inspection. And why am I standing on the stairs? I'm standing on the stairs because this is an open landing, open to the sky. Any hydration event, rain, snow, anything that happens, including the sprinklers, can catch water on this landing. And if water sits on this landing and this landing is without formal drainage, that water has to go somewhere. We're going to get lucky enough and maybe it cascades down the stairs to the next landing, and then the next landing, and to the next landing, or maybe, just maybe, it gets caught up underneath of us into the structure and the stucco. So doing your strategy and going through the building, I would want to look at the top of the landing and then the underside of the landing to see if I have any damage. So let's go take a look at that. It's important to look at every landing portion. Some buildings might have dozens of these, especially lodging facilities, but this is an office space with open hallways. I've looked at the landing from the surface. Now I'm going to look at it from underneath. And I just want to make sure that I don't have any stucco issues. I think we're going to have to look at several landings in this building. I can't just look at one because I have to look at the entire exterior of this building. Let's see if we can find other issues with some of the other undersides of these landings while doing the exterior inspection. Other damage that you might find around the exterior of the stucco could be physical damage from things like landscaping, where they've used the edger up against the building and either taken off the surface coloring or even physically damaged the stucco itself. Or you might have areas where the sprinkler is causing damage. In this case, I've got a sprinkler in the corner and maybe it's hydrating this area from poor spray maintenance. So again, walk your entire building. We are required by the CommSop to identify the type of siding, but then it's also important to inspect all of the siding to make sure we don't have any damage, moisture, or anything else that might be present. Follow the CommSop and do excellent commercial inspections.